So Reginald D Hunter is in the news again. I say again as if he's been in the news recently. He hasn't been in the news recently, but he's in the news now because he's been doing some comedy shows in the UK. And he's getting cancelled, chat. The right wing is cancelling Reginald D Hunter. What they're cancelling him for is making a joke about Israel and then also making a joke at the expense of some Israeli in the audience who got mad at him telling a joke about Israel. Okay, so let's read on, okay. So this actually came from somebody from The Telegraph doing a review that's been kind of co-reported here by LBC, but we'll see what they have to say about it. The entertainer was halfway through a show at the Edinburgh Fringe when he made a joke about how watching a recent Channel 5 documentary made him think of Israel. During the documentary, a woman told how she was ill-treated by her husband. The comedian said it made him think, my God, that's being like married to Israel. Okay, so a bit of an off-colour joke. It's not particularly near the knuckle when it comes to joking about, you know, the whole country committing a genocide, really and truly. Like, maybe domestic issues probably shouldn't be compared to countries committing ethnic cleansing, but there you go. Even so, still a funny little comment. A funny little comment. But the joke rankled the Israeli pair who were in the front row who shouted out, not funny. The Telegraph's theatre critic Dominic Cavendish, who was in the audience, said, the pair who said they were from Israel then endured their fellow audience members shouting expletives, fuck off among them, and telling them to go with slow hand claps, boos and cries of genocidal maniac. You're not welcome and free Palestine as part of the toxic mix. So again, this is being reported from somebody in the Telegraph, so we don't know exactly what was said other than just not funny by the Israeli pair. Did they remonstrate too much? How much did they say? Is this a genuine recollection of our entire baying mob, or was it just a couple of comments? We don't know. We don't know. We can only take this Telegraph theatre critic's words as being truthful here. Hunter then appeared to side with the pro-Palestine element of the audience, telling the Israeli couple, you can say it's not funny to you, but if you say it's a room full of people who laughed, you look foolish. I mean, that is true. If the audience laughed and they said it wasn't funny, then clearly they are not on the same level as everybody else. That is a reasonable comment to make. They then left the show whilst the audience jeered at them. So, not exactly anything groundbreaking. Somebody said a joke, somebody said they didn't like the joke, other people got mocking, other people mocked them for not liking the joke, and then they left because they didn't like the joke because of their geopolitical opinions. I wonder if Reginald D Hunter is going to go and get an invite to the anti-woke comedy night, Comedy Unleashed in London. I wonder if that's going to happen. I wonder if Toby Young and Andrew Doyle are going to be inviting the cancelled Reginald D Hunter to their Comedy Unleashed night so he can tell his jokes without the fear of people thinking it's too political or who can't take a joke. But actually, of course, as always, the Conservatives are the real prudes here, thinking, isn't it mad how somebody told this off-colour joke and then also made a joke about it and people jeered in a comedy audience? Yeah, two Zionists got offended, big whoop, literally. And then they left the show because they didn't like the show. Really not surprising. Now, he has made poor taste jokes about Jewish people, like things about the Holocaust and talking about how you have to subscribe to... In 2006, he made a joke about how he couldn't read something from the Jewish Chronicle because they asked you to subscribe, and then was like, typical fucking Jews, you have to subscribe, and then said, it is a joke, I don't mean it, right? Which is an off-colour joke, to be fair, not something that I condone either way. Interesting that the right wing are going on at him about jokes. Can you joke about anything? Can any group be targeted by a joke? Or are only certain communities ones that you can defend for having jokes targeted at them, punching down at them? Because that's what this is really and truly. A joke about Jewish people always wanting your money is a joke that punches down. I don't think you should tell those jokes. But it's interesting how when it's a Jewish person that's targeted, the punching down is absolutely completely awful. And I think that it would be awful. But punching down on transgender people, oh, I thought I was a joke about anything. Like, no consistency from the right wing on this one. I think that punch-down jokes against Jewish people are bad, and also are bad against trans people. But weird how they take very specific positions on this, depending on the minority that's being targeted, if you're a right-winger. The best comedy punches up. True. And what is more punching up than punching up at a military-armed state backed with billions and billions of dollars of US money, currently illegally occupying and committing ethnic cleansing against a tiny, embittered and battled population in Palestine? That's definitely punching up. Also, this is an incredible find. This is an incredible find that the same writer who was admonishing Reginald D Hunter earlier on this year is now getting mad about the fact that people were cancelled for making jokes about Hamas, the other side of this conflict. Hate speech zealots are killing comedy. They don't believe anything. The right-wingers do not believe in a single thing. They have no moral principles whatsoever. It's just whatever is good for them. They will take tactical positions on whatever is best for them, regardless of the situation, as long as it is beneficial. They don't have a principle about hate speech in comedy, because it's terrible when the anti-hate speech people hate it when you punch down on transgender people, but you should be able to punch down transgender people because they are degenerate and we should hate them. But jokes punching down on Jewish people, those should be admonished, and it's terrible when that happens. And I agree, but I also think that should apply to transgender people as well. But they specifically have a point of view depending on which minority it is. And you can see the naked hypocrisy from Dominic Cavendish about this when getting mad at Reginald D Hunter for doing it against Jewish people, but absolutely fine for Graham Linehan and people like that to do it against trans people, for example. Yeah, zero consistency. I wonder when the Free Speech Union and Toby Young are going to comment on the cancellation of Reginald D Hunter. I wonder.
And I made this point at the beginning. Not the first time we have seen this in a comedy show, actually. I think we talked before about something that happened in London, where the comedian himself was sort of encouraging a bit of a pile-on to some Jewish audience members.
Nothing about Jewishness is relevant here. They are Israeli citizens. They are citizens of the country of which the government is doing the bad thing. And that is what is relevant here. There are plenty of Jewish people, both within Israel as Israeli citizens who oppose the government, and who are not Israeli, who are British Jewish people who live here who oppose the actions of the government. This has nothing to do with ethnicity. This has nothing to do with religion. This is a nationality conversation. This is about support for ideology and policy, which is not correlative with somebody's ethnicity. Thank you.
That's right, and indeed not even the first time that Reginald D Hunter himself has been embroiled in such a controversy involving Jews. There was another furore, which I won't go into, a few years ago about Holocaust denial or alleged Holocaust denial. So whether that's true or not, we don't know. But this particular incident really has touched a raw nerve with many Jews, Israelis, and our friends and allies, and indeed anybody of good moral conscience, because he initially started the thing off by making that rather offensive joke about Israel being compared to a domestic abuse.
Oh, you offended? Are you offended by the jokes? Oh no, comedy is cancelled, chat. No more comedy for anybody. Jake Wallace-Simons was offended by a joke. We have to get rid of comedy forever. Sad face. Literally triggered. Literally a special snowflake getting mad because somebody compared a domestic abuser to his emotional support ethno-state.
You know, to a domestic abuser. And that's one thing. But then when two Israelis were in the audience who may have lost family, certainly would have known people who were either killed or wounded in October the 7th, and now their country is under existential threat from a number of fronts, facing the very same jihadis that have tried to kill us so many times and sometimes succeeded in Manchester and elsewhere. When they objected, saying my country isn't a domestic abuser, they were then subjected to an audience pile-on, but it sounds like encouraged by Reginald D Hunter.
And that's the thing, right, as well. As Carpipax points out, also welcome in chat, everyone go drop Carpipax a follow. The threat is self-created, and that's true. Which is why actually the analogy really kind of holds up on Reginald D Hunter's end. The person who keeps, like, attacking you, and then when you finally stand up to them, they go, oh, how dare you, I'm your loving husband, I'm your loving partner, oh, I can't believe you do that, oh, I'm so under threat. That's the classic, like, gaslighting abuser tactic, yeah?
Called genocidal maniacs and hounded out, even though one of them was disabled. And the final coda to this was that afterwards,
being disabled does not excuse you from supporting ethnic cleansing.
Reginald D Hunter made another joke about Jews, saying that the Jewish Chronicle was behind a paywall. Typical effing Jews, they won't tell you anything unless you subscribe. Now, I can tell him, as editor of the Jewish Chronicle, we do not have a paywall. So I don't know which site you've been visiting, Reginald D Hunter.
But I mean, that is an anti-Semitic trope and, you know, a stereotype. And I mean, that's just basic racism, isn't it? I mean, that's
I wonder how he would have felt had two black people been in an audience of largely white people and had been objected to a racial joke and then been hounded out and for then to be something.
The thing is that If you're making jokes about somebody's ethnicity and it is something that is punching down at you, I would condemn it too. But it's interesting that these hardcore conservatives are both really happy to talk about identity politics, to essentially do left-wing intersectional analysis over the impacts of comedy on Jewish people, which they absolutely should be doing. I agree. If you make jokes about Jewish people that are just offensive about, stereotypes about Jewish people wanting loads of money, that is offensive, I agree. I don't think the joke about Israel was, because Israel is a political entity, not an ethnicity. But it's, again, I will point to the hypocrisy that all of these people seem to be very, very happy to say, oh, you should be able to joke about whatever you want. Trans jokes should be absolutely within anybody's remit. But as soon as you make jokes about another minority, suddenly they get offended in the way that they should be about jokes about trans people. Funny how they understand racism when it suits them, literally. And even then, in this case, I mean, the case of the joke told at the Fringe about Israel, not even a racist joke at all. The joke that he just mentioned there from 2006, now that is racist. I would have agreed that it was, but
Their absence to a further racial joke, I don't think he'd be very happy about that.
I know we've talked about this before, Jake, and it still confuses. Maybe it shouldn't confuse me, because we know there are people like this that just live among us. But you there's a bit of you that likes to think, and I know, this is going to sound daft as I say it, but there is a perception. People are at the Edinburgh Festival. These are open-minded, artistic people that might likely go to a comedy show. They are people on the caring left of life. So they don't they go to, anti-racism rallies, that kind of thing.
yes, but talking about Israel is not about race, it's about nationality. These are two different things. Keep up.
For some reason, and I don't know how, for some reason, on this one area, they feel like they've got a big, fat green light to say whatever they like about Jews or Israelis or Israel.
Yeah, I mean, that's how anti-Semitism...
Yeah, there's a difference between Jews, Israelis, and the State of Israel. Jews are an ethnic group, an ethno-religious group that have many different nationalities and many different opinions and many different political ideologies. Israelis are the residents of the State of Israel, who may or may not have particular opinions on the actions of the Israeli government, and Israel is a nation-state in the Middle East with a government that has policy that people disagree with, mainly the whole ethnic cleansing thing that they're doing in Palestine, mainly the whole illegal occupation. That political entity and the political ideology of Zionism is what is being criticised, not Israelis, because they weren't being criticised for being Israeli, they're being criticised for being Israelis who support the Israeli government's actions, and they weren't being insulted for being Jewish because that wouldn't come into the conversation at all, because they were residents of Israel. Because there are plenty of residents of Israel, there are plenty of Israeli citizens who support the government who aren't Jewish. They could be Arab, they could be Druze. There could be plenty of different ethnicities who live in Israel who support the government who aren't Jewish. And they would still be up for exactly the same criticism because it's not about ethnicity.
Works, unfortunately. It finds a way to make people who indulge in it feel like the good guys. The Nazis felt like the good guys. They told themselves they were ridding the world of a malign threat. And today, the left convinces itself that they're the good guys because Israel is a malign threat threatening the world, even though it's a sole democracy in the Middle East. And that's how it works. That's why Israelophobia, as I've dubbed it, is really the newest form of the oldest hatred. You can see it in open display, particularly on the left these days, and they all cheer each other on as if they're on the side of the angels. They're the good guys. So it's up to people like you and me, us to say enough is enough. Yeah. And there's no excuse for this sort of thing. A joke is a joke, and that's funny. But there's a point where a joke is articulating something that's very dark and objectionable, and we need to complain about that.
Have we heard it?
And again, I don't disagree with the overall sentiment of we should be critical of jokes that have elements of them that are bigoted or hateful. Just nothing that didn't happen here because it was about the nation state of Israel rather than an ethno-religious group. The conflation of anti-Semitism with any criticism of Israel is cowardly defence that weaponises the real discrimination of Jews to defend the deplorable action of a genocidal apartheid regime and also harms the Jewish diaspora. It also harms the Jewish diaspora by trying to intimately tie the ethno-religious group to the actions of the state when those things have no link whatsoever, right? It is dangerous for Jewish people the world over, for people who support Israel to say, you were intimately tied to this country, and if they insult that, they insult you when you disagree with the actions of that state. There are plenty of Jewish people who get terrible anti-Semitism directed at them by people who also conflate the actions of the state of Israel with the Jewish people, with the Jewish diaspora. Both anti-Semites and philo-Semites can do that. they can do that conflation, and all it does is harm Jewish people by saying, oh, your ethno-religious group, your values are shared with genocide, ethnic cleansing, and apartheid, when that is not the case. That just fundamentally is not the case, and it's so dangerous, right? Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.